faith in science. Henry Colton said, until spiritually awakened, man builds a computerize separative world. He believes that what he sees reflected in the mirror of the lower mind is the only world. Heraclitus said, much knowledge of things divine escapes us through want of faith. I love teaching in a science and technology school. You ask your students the classic medieval question, how many angels can dance on the head of a pin? And they say, angels are hyperdimensional beings. How many lights can go through a point? An infinite number. How many angels can dance on the head of a pin? Angels have more than 3 dimensions, therefore the answer is an infinite number. My students can do the math. That must be a challenge for their philosophy professors in college. I share with my students that for me, science, religion, and philosophy tell the same story. In my experience, whenever they don't, it's always politics. I mean, the universe doesn't need our opinions to regulate its laws. At a wholesale club, I recently bought over a pound of Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee for less than $10. Is it truly Blue Mountain? My purchase was based on faith. But there is an answer to this question that can be based on observation. A researcher can investigate the coffee and determine if it's authentic. Before I was born, my father had a serious accident, falling 16 feet from a crane, splitting his head open, requiring 75 stitches. He was in a coma for 3 weeks. The doctors didn't know if he would regain consciousness. He awoke from the coma. The nurses found him crawling on the floor looking for a tooth he had lost. He was also calling my mother's name, although they weren't to meet for yet another year. The nurses found tooth and figured he still had his mind. What agency informed him, my father, of his future mate? To him, the soul is more than a myth, but it is beyond the realm of scientific observation. Yet to those who believe, there is evidence of the soul. It is a matter of faith in something that cannot be observed. Paul of Tarsus said, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. I know it's true because I read it on your reading card. What can be determined scientifically, and what is indeterminate? I checked my notes with a friend who was a quantum physicist, a mathematician, and a textbook author. You may know him. We had a discussion on indeterminacy and the types of things that are beyond the observable or quantum limit. To be self-consistent, science must admit it was only with that which is either observable or testable. We spoke about Einstein's statement, God doesn't throw dice, and Hawking's response, not only does God definitely throw dice, but he sometimes confuses us by throwing them behind a corner where the outcome can't be seen. The answer to the question of determinacy is still up in the air after 80 years. Presently, science believes that, contrary to Einstein, nothing is behind a quantum veil. The Copernican theorem denies hidden variables beyond the quantum limit. John Bell's theory of non-locality concludes that even God is bound by the uncertainty principle. From this, scientists concluded that that which shapes the universe is not deterministic. It is free will. At a recent check, 178 scholarly articles cite works that prove the Copernican theorem. But 110 articles cite works in which measurement disproves the Copernican theorem. Personally, I love it. To me, it means that indeterminacy cannot be determined. It's a matter of faith. Carl Jung explained coincidences using what he called the aplausible connecting principle, or synchronicity, a pattern of connections that cannot be explained by causality. I have a story from Wikipedia on it. example of synchronicity involves plum pudding. This is the true story of the French writer Emile Deschamps, who in 1805 was treated to some plum pudding by the stranger Monsieur de Fonchibou. 10 years later, he encounters plum pudding on the menu of a Paris restaurant and wants to order some. But the waiter tells him the last dish has already been served to another customer. It turns out to be Monsieur de Fonchibou. Many years later, 1832, Emile Deschamps is at dinner and once again is offered plum pudding. He recalls the earlier incident and tells his friends that only Monsieur de Fonchibou was missing to make the setting complete. And in the same instant, now senile Monsieur de Fonchibou wanders into the room by mistake. End quote. Because synchronicity is not testable, science does not believe it yields hard facts. Those who study coincidences say that science deals only with reproducible events that are independent of observers. But the quantum theory complicates the matter. By definition, synchronicity is a function of the observer. Science cannot dismiss it, though, because quantum theory is also connected with observation. Let me assume that everyone knows the wave matter duality we discussed in quantum mechanics, so I can jump ahead to Schrödinger's cat. And allow assisted from the unemployed philosopher's guild. In the famous thought experiment, the developers of quantum mechanics put a cat in a box with a capsule of cyanide. A particle is shot with a double opening in the box. As the wave passes through both gates at once. As a particle, it can only pass through one. One of the gates triggers the breaking of the cyanide capsule. The question is asked, is the cat alive or is it dead? Quantum reality of the cat says that it is birth. The wave function collapses to a discrete outcome only when observation takes place. So the cat's fate exists as both realities until someone looks. In Copenhagen, the founders of quantum mechanics stated the orthodox view that everything has only a probability of existence until it is measured or observed. Observation collapses the wave possibilities into material outcomes. So quantum functions are possibilities. When people make choices, they form the boundaries to their future possibilities. In the sense that they form the future they will experience. The act of choosing or observing sets boundaries around various future possibilities. I've shared with some of my students the story of how I met my wife. I was in a restaurant at the Days Inn across from the Buffalo Airport. I always sit at the counter because it's very lame to talk to anyone else who sits at the counter. I looked across the room to a table of women sitting together. I'm not normally mystical, but I saw a sphere of light around their cheeks. Then I saw a pink sweater, and then I saw her eyes. It was like electricity jumping between us. I knew her, but I had never met her in my life. She saw something too. Was it love at first sight? I'm not sure, because the knowing scared us both. What communication allowed us to know that we knew each other? Leo Tolstoy said faith is the force of life. The classic joke running around school from time to time is whether hell is exothermic or endothermic. The answer usually involves that Eric gets a and says that hell is frozen over. But it's the wrong question. In Dante's Inferno, at the bottom of hell, the devil is suspended head first in a lake of ice. The third law of quantum thermodynamics defines scriptures, I often find what appears to be science expressed through the mythic symbology of a former day. So for me, the best minds of any age tell their stories through the medium of the day. Science, religion, and philosophy tell the same story. Last year, a student shared a vivid dream with me. He said that while he was dreaming it, he noticed exactly 18 years into the future. He was observing masses of people. Around their hearts was an all-white glowing nimbus. He shared that he had seen these dreams before, but previously each person had individualized colors. In 2030, he looked at the factory that was producing clone-like beings that were all identical. Over the factory hung a sign with one word: choices. 0 degrees of freedom. How does one interpret such a dream? It depends on your horizon. You have to answer the 3 classic questions. Who am I? Where do I come from? Where am I going? Are you a deterministic piece of flesh controlled by genes and environment, a consumer in a mechanized world? Or are you something more than material? Is consciousness just the froth bubbling up from brain chemistry? Or is there something more operating behind the observable limit? Can science answer this question? John Donne said, reason is our soul's left hand, faith her right. By these we reach divinity. Beyond the quantum veil is nothing, or else everything. The potentiality of spirit yet to manifest. My spiritual teacher spoke of Ptolemy's third heaven as a world of archetypes, blueprints yet to take form. To me, this is the world of potential beyond the quantum veil. There is room in my faith for a God to manifest the unknown, but for now it exists in his mind, unmanifested and unobserved. From Lao Tzu, the way that we told of is not the absolute way. The names that can be given are not the absolute names. The origin of heaven and earth is the before names. Some things are only observable through faith. These things are not generally repeatable upon demand. Like synchronicity, they are acausal. A question of faith cannot be settled by research. But it's simple to a child. A child can see it. If you ask me as a scientist, I have to say I do not know. But I have seen. I know. And for me, what I've seen confirms what others have seen. Is it verifiable? Only through the eyes of faith. Does this disprove it? In a universe of indeterminacy, I would have to say no. It is a mystery. Jesus of Nazareth, according to your faith, be it unto you.